Greetings, class, and welcome back. This is Finance 101, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the Chapter 7 Foundation of Savings material. Now, here is my instruction for you to be able to get attendance points this time. You will need to download the PowerPoint, open it up, and as you go through it, when you get to one of the Pull Everywhere questions, it'll activate and you'll be able to respond to that question. So, what I want you to do is download this PowerPoint, go through it, answer those questions, and then you will have Pull Everywhere points for your for Chapter 7. But anyway, we want to get to what we're going to talk about today. And today we're going to talk about foundations of savings, which includes emergency funds, savings as an opportunity cost, how to motivate yourself to save, some savings alternatives, and then financial fraud in different forms, and finally, identity theft. When we talk about saving, one of the first questions that a lot of people want to know an answer to is the return. And return is actually the interest rate that you're going to earn. So a nominal return is the actual percentage rate that the bank will pay you on your account. So recently, that percentage interest has been lower. But if you open a passbook savings account, for example, you might earn 1% return on that. But the real rate of return is adjusted for inflation. So if you have a 1% return, that is, you're getting paid 1%, and inflation is 3%, you are going to lose 2% in purchasing power. And that's the real rate of return. If you want to know how to calculate the real rate of return, this is the formula. 1 plus the nominal return divided by 1 plus the inflation rate minus 1. And what we say here is if Joan's making a 12% rate of return on an investment with inflation at 3%, her real rate of return is 8.74%. And it's calculated like this down here below. You want to begin for looking at an emergency fund by estimating your monthly living expenses. And this is basically the minimum dollar amount you need each month to pay for necessities like groceries, like utilities, those kinds of things. So basically, it's a minimum amount that you are calculating. You're not calculating extra expenses, but you're calculating the minimum. So you're going to cut out, pardon me, you're going to cut out non essentials here. And the essentials are going to be things like a mortgage payment, rent, insurance, utilities, car payments, and so on. Then you're going to look at what assets you have. Do you have some money in a savings account? What kind of cash do you have set aside? Do you have checking accounts? That sort of thing. And then you're going to calculate the emergency fund ratio by taking the monetary assets that you have and divide those by the monthly living expenses that you calculate. So here are some examples of common emergency expenses: a hospital stay. They show it here around 13,000. I know that it's much higher than that typically. Um, I've seen hospital bills lately, and they can be much, much higher than that. A major car repair, yeah, that can be a couple $1,000s easily. And then a dental expense, that can be a lot of money as well. So when you open up this PowerPoint and you get to this slide, I want you to type in what you think an emergency fund is for. What kind of things would you use it for? This is an overview of savings here, and we want to look at what we're talking about in terms of saving. Well, when we save, we are everything that we do has an opportunity cost. That is, if we are saving money, we are giving up something else. So whatever we put in savings is an opportunity cost that we lose the opportunity to do something else. For example, if I wanted to go to a concert, I might have to spend a couple $100 on tickets. But if I chose instead to put that money in savings, that would be an opportunity cost of a couple $100. So when we were talking about an opportunity cost, we know that it's the loss of a benefit when we decide to save money. So we put money into the account, and instead of spending it on something else, then we basically have savings. So this is a question, again, that you can respond to when you open the PowerPoint and it activates, then you can respond to one of these questions. So motivating yourself to save, this is one way to think about it. When you're thinking about opportunity costs, you may give up the opportunity to have a new car. You might have some other things that you want to buy or travel or whatever, but you may delay that so that you can have the emergency fund and you have savings and are prepared for some of these different possibilities. So, one of the things that people talk about many times is visualization. So, if you visualize these events happening or possibilities of them, then you want to think about, okay, how can I respond to those? And these are all events that you can anticipate in the future. So you have a car breakdown, helping a family or a friend in need, dental work, and then you think, okay, I'm glad I put that money in the bank. So when we talk about assets for an emergency fund and savings, we're talking about these kinds of accounts. So first we have a savings account that's very liquid. You don't have much in the way of return or interest. It's very flexible, and it is insured by the FDIC or NCUA, I believe. Anyway, one of those firms will basically insure it up to $250,000. Now, when we talk about a money market account, we might have a little higher return with that because there may be balance restrictions on it. In other words, you have to have a certain minimum balance in that account. You may be able to draw some money out, but certainly not the entire balance. A certificate of deposit will lock your money up for a specific period of time. And there's not much liquidity here because you have to wait for the deposit to actually mature, or you have some sort of a penalty if you try to take that money out early. Now, the same thing would be a dedicated savings account. It would be very similar to a certificate of deposit in that you have a better return, and but you have limited flexibility with it because you cannot withdraw money as easily from it. It will allow you to deposit it in several different deposits, but unlike the certificate of deposit where you deposit it all at once. So, again, another question as you go through this and you're looking at this, when you download it on your computer, you can respond to one of these questions and pull everywhere. So we want to talk about a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. And the biggest thing I want to say here is that the traditional IRA is tax deferred. You don't pay tax on contributions when you put the money in. and but you do pay tax on the money you take out. The Roth IRA, you make a contribution and you don't get a tax deduction, but the upside to that is you don't pay taxes when you take the money out. So a Roth IRA basically has these advantages. Your investment will accumulate tax-free or tax-deferred, and then money taken out is typically tax-free. So when you put money in, you're going to pay tax, but when you take it out, you don't pay tax. If you take it out before retirement, you'll pay a 10% penalty. A traditional IRA works about the same way, except all of the money you take out is taxable, and you have a penalty if you take it out before age 59 and a half, except for disability, if the owner of the account dies, if you're buying a home, or have higher education expenses. And finally, medical insurance if you're unemployed. This is an example of an allocation of assets based on a Roth IRA, where they might put some of the money, so you'd have lower risk bonds, you have stocks and mutual funds over here, and maybe an insured bank account here. So the point in this is the diversification of the account keeps you from as much risk. Savings bonds, they are one way that you can save money. You're lending your money to the U.S. government, and in exchange, they will pay you interest. The interest itself is not huge, but it's a very, very safe investment. So savings bonds are considered to be risk-free. So here's an example of the different types. A $25 bond matures. After 30 years, it stops earning interest, and the interest rate is going to be fixed. But if you go over here to the Series I savings bonds, you can purchase them for larger amounts, and they have variable interest rate. So if you bought a $500 I bond, after 16 years, it would accumulate to this at 4.3%. So although bonds are not big returns, they are safe returns. So you just have to think about, okay, maybe it's not the biggest return, but if I'm risk adverse, it might be an attractive option. So financial fraud and identity theft occurs when someone deceives you with a promise of goods, services, or money that don't really exist. And so that's financial fraud. Identity theft is when someone takes your information and acts as if they're you in your place. So there are three very well-known financial frauds. There are the Ponzi schemes, and these have been operated for years. Probably the most famous individual to be caught in a Ponzi scheme was President Ulysses Grant. After he left office, he went into business with somebody, and he didn't realize it, but he was running a Ponzi scheme. A pyramid scheme, and telemarketing fraud. Those are the three basic financial frauds. The Ponzi scheme basically takes people's money and says they're going to pay a very high rate of return. But what they're actually doing is they're taking the money from new investors and directing it to the old investors. They don't ever, in a Ponzi scheme, they don't ever really invest the money. They just direct the newer investments toward the individuals to make them think they're earning a larger return. A pyramid scheme basically is a scam based on selling products and recruiting new members into an organization. So usually the the commissions that they earn on selling products is not that great, but they do earn more income based on fees that are paid by new members. So if they sign somebody up to this, it's a little more attractive, or a lot more attractive. And it's always more attractive to somebody on top of the pyramid. Basically, later members have a much more difficult time signing up members or making the recruiting work. Eventually, all pyramid schemes crumble and they all fall apart. So here's an example of a pyramid scheme, and it shows you how many people are at each level. The people making the money are up here at the top. The people down here at the bottom are not really making money. They have some, but not anything close to what the people at the top do. All right, so here is another question in Poll Everywhere. When you come to this slide, you can answer the question, and it will record your answer. A telemarketing fraud occurs when a product or service is not represented properly in a phone call. So this is typical. When I was 17, I got taken in by one of these telemarketing calls, and the person said, "I want a gift," which was a magazine subscription. But as it turned out, they sent me a bill right after my free gift, and it wasn't a free gift. So basically, I acted quickly and canceled that subscription that they signed me up for. Besides, I was underage too. I don't think that they knew that. But anyway, so this kind of a fraud can happen anytime. So one of the things not to do: never buy something from somebody you're not familiar with. Don't pay a processing fee to get a prize. Never, ever invest in something you don't understand, or send money overseas to someone you don't know. What you should do is always ask to receive written material before you send money to anyone. Don't believe that a rich relative you don't know left you money and they're going to ask you to pay to get the details. A good rule here is be skeptical whenever it comes to anything that would separate you from your money. This question, which of the following frauds do you fear the most? And then identity theft. This is something I found very interesting. Before 1998, this was not considered to be a federal crime. It has changed significantly since that time. And this man took somebody's credit and ran up all these credit card debt, a mortgage, bought a car, a boat, motorcycles, and guns. So the FBI recommends not to throw away ATM receipts or credit statements. Never, ever give your credit card number over the phone unless you made the call. And never, ever respond to a phishing scheme. It's an unsolicited email that asks you to provide some personal information. Last question: what happens when you are deceived into believing you will receive something that does not exist? Always reconcile bank accounts. Keep a list of credit cards. Obtain your credit report regularly, and identify anything that doesn't look right. Anyway, that's the presentation and the material for Chapter 7. I'm going to ask you to download this PowerPoint, go through it, answer the questions, and there will be an assignment. There is an assignment in Canvas. All right, have a great day, and I will see you when I return.